Overnight, Illinois was brought to its knees. Highways disappeared under blinding whiteouts, transforming familiar routes into perilous traps. Hundreds of vehicles lay twisted across miles of frozen interstate. At O'Hare International Airport, one of the busiest in the world, planes sat stranded in sheets of ice, with over 300 flights canceled, turning terminals into makeshift shelters. In less than 12 hours, a fast-moving winter storm transformed the Midwest into a frozen disaster zone, underscoring the delicate balance of modern infrastructure against nature's raw power. Snow hammered Chicago at 1 to 2 inches per hour, burying neighborhoods, shutting down schools, and triggering nearly 500 crashes, one of the most chaotic travel days in recent memory for a major metropolitan area. Wind chills plunged below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, freezing cars in place and making even a short walk outside feel dangerous. Lake effect bands ripped inland from Lake Michigan, striking suburbs with surgical precision. Some towns were blasted with 7 inches of snow, while others just miles away saw barely a dusting, a chilling reminder of how unpredictable and deadly this type of storm can be, and the localized vulnerabilities it exposes. Families spent the morning digging out cars they could no longer see. First responders raced from one accident to the next, resources stretched thin, and millions of residents were left wondering, how did a single storm unleash this much chaos in such a short amount of time? More importantly, an ominous question lingered. Is this just the beginning of a harsher, more volatile winter ahead, a new climatic normal? The first signs of trouble appeared quietly, almost deceptively, belying the impending catastrophe. Before dawn, a light stream of flurries drifted over northern Illinois. Nothing unusual for early winter. Nothing that suggested what was coming. But beneath that calm surface, the atmosphere was already shifting. A formidable surge of Arctic air, colder and drier than anything Illinois had seen so far this season, began sliding south from Canada, a critical catalyst for the coming chaos. As it moved, it collided with warmer, moisture-laden air sweeping across the vast expanse of Lake Michigan, setting the stage for a storm more intense than anyone, even experienced meteorologists, anticipated. By the time most families were shaking off their Thanksgiving weekend routine, the first heavy bands of snow were already forming, rapidly gaining strength. Meteorologists watching Doppler radar saw the system strengthen at a startling rate. What was expected to be a typical early December snowfall suddenly evolved into a high-impact winter event, forcing urgent reevaluation of emergency protocols. At sunrise, snowfall intensified across a wide band of the state, from Rockford in the north down to Peoria, Bloomington, and Springfield in central Illinois. Chicago found itself in the heart of the outbreak, with snow falling relentlessly at 1 to 2 inches per hour, quickly overwhelming roads that had been meticulously cleared only days earlier. Community by community, the totals began mounting. Chicago around inches, Springfield 8, 9 inches, nearly setting a local early season record. Rockford close to 8 inches. Peoria over 5 inches. But the most dramatic numbers came from the suburbs. Lake effect snow, supercharged by the still, warm waters of Lake Michigan, strengthened rapidly. Narrow bands of intensely concentrated snowfall hammered towns like Sleepy Hollow, Schaumburg, Streamwood, and Batavia, dumping 6 to 7 inches of snow in a fraction of the time other regions received theirs. These bands acted like atmospheric laser beams, hitting one neighborhood with crushing snowfall while the area next door remained relatively untouched, a phenomenon that makes forecasting and preparedness uniquely challenging. Drivers moving just a few miles west or east found themselves passing from clear roads into instant whiteout conditions, a sudden, terrifying loss of visibility. The National Weather Service, tracking the mounting totals and deteriorating road conditions, issued a winter weather advisory from noon until midnight. Their warnings were stark. Slick ice-coated roads near zero visibility and blowing snow. Dangerous wind chills falling below 0 degrees. Rapidly changing conditions across short distances. But even these warnings did not fully capture the speed at which the storm was strengthening, outpacing even sophisticated predictive models. As the morning progressed, the city of Chicago and much of Illinois moved from inconvenience to emergency. Snow covered the landscape with remarkable speed. Streets that had been clear an hour earlier were suddenly buried. Drivers who thought they could beat the storm found themselves trapped in blinding whiteouts. The stage was set, and what unfolded next would test Illinois' transportation system, emergency services, and community resilience in ways no one had expected for the first week of winter. The economic ripple effects, from supply chain disruptions to lost business, began to accrue instantly. As the storm intensified, Illinois' vast highway system, the lifeblood of its commerce, began to fall apart in real time. The snow wasn't just accumulating, it was transforming the landscape, turning streets, highways, and entire interstates into treacherous ice-slick corridors. What had started as a difficult morning commute escalated into one of the most dangerous travel days the state had seen in years. By mid-morning, whiteout conditions blanketed major routes like ID-94, I-55, and I-290. Drivers reported watching visibility shrink from a quarter-mile to a few car lengths to absolutely nothing. A solid wall of blowing snow erased lane markers, signs, guardrails, even other vehicles. For many, the roads simply disappeared beneath their tires. Wind gusts reaching 40-45 miles per hour whipped across open stretches of highway, lifting fresh snow into swirling storms that spun around vehicles like icy tornadoes, disorienting and terrifying. Even the most experienced Midwestern drivers were caught off guard. Anti-lock brakes locked. Traction control systems failed. Cars slid sideways with no warning. The Illinois State Police were overwhelmed almost immediately. Nearly 500 crashes reported within hours, a staggering tally. 66 people injured, some seriously. Over 300 additional emergencies. Disabled vehicles, spinouts, stranded families, jackknifed semi-trucks, interstate pileups stretched for miles. Tow trucks lined the shoulders as far as the eye could see. Firefighters worked in brutal cold to free drivers pinned inside mangled vehicles. One officer described the situation bluntly. Cars were crashing faster than we could respond, a testament to the storm's overwhelming power and speed. Freezing fog made the situation even worse. As temperatures plunged, microscopic droplets of moisture froze instantly on metal, windshields, and pavement, creating black ice so smooth and invisible that even emergency vehicles struggled to stay upright. Drivers tapped the brakes and immediately spun out. Entire exit ramps became unusable. For thousands of people returning from Thanksgiving travel, the timing could not have been worse. Heavier than normal traffic amplified every hazard. A single accident triggered miles of gridlock. A jackknifed semi turned a major interstate into a parking lot. Families sat for hours with heaters running, watching snow pile up against their doors, trapped. And while plow crews worked tirelessly, often in whiteout conditions, the snowfall rate tragically outpaced their ability to respond. Every cleared lane was buried again within minutes. Salt barely stuck to the pavement before another blast of snow erased their progress. Residents captured videos showing cars sliding uncontrollably through intersections, buses stuck sideways across lanes, and emergency responders trudging through knee-deep drifts to reach injured drivers. This wasn't just a traffic jam, this was a transportation collapse, a systemic, cascading failure triggered by a storm no one fully anticipated. Officials issued a stark, urgent message to the public. Do not travel. Stay home unless it is absolutely essential. But for many already on the road, it was a warning that came too late. As Illinois' highways descended into chaos, the skies above Chicago faced their own crisis. O'Hare International Airport, one of the busiest transportation hubs in the world, was suddenly overwhelmed by a storm that outpaced even its enormous, sophisticated winter response system. In a matter of hours, OR transitioned from normal holiday congestion to a scene of near-complete paralysis. The first signs of trouble emerged as snow intensified over the airfield. Dicing crews rushed between aircraft, but the snow was falling faster than they could clear it. Snow piled on wings as soon as it was removed. Freezing winds pushed ice across runways faster than plows could scrape it away. What began as delays quickly spiraled into a full-scale shutdown. By midday, the numbers were staggering. 300-plus flights canceled, hundreds more delayed by 45 to 90 minutes. Long lines of aircraft stranded at gates, planes immobilized under layers of ice and snow. Inside the terminals, the atmosphere shifted from frustration to exhaustion. Families stretched across the floor with jackets as blankets. Children slept on suitcases. Business travelers hunched over laptops trying to reschedule flights that might not leave for another day. At the departure boards, passengers watched an endless pattern flash across the screens. Cancelled, delayed, cancelled, delayed. Many simply stopped checking, their hopes fading. Meanwhile, outside the airport, the roads were no safer. At least one SUV lost control near the terminal exit, slamming into a snowbank with enough force to crumple the passenger side door. Emergency lights illuminated blowing snow as first responders worked to secure the scene. Across the city, Midway Airport faced its own challenges, though on a smaller scale. Only a handful of flights were canceled, and delays were shorter, around 15 minutes on average. But even Midway battled relentless snow and slippery runways, forcing crews into a non-stop struggle to keep the airport operational. Back at O'Hare, the crisis grew deeper. Dicing vehicles moved in convoys, headlights cutting through the swirling whiteout as they tried to free aircraft trapped on the tarmac. But the wind kept shifting, pushing drifts across cleared areas and forcing crews to start over. Each delay cascaded into dozens more. Passengers at Gate 812 described hearing the wind howl through the automatic doors every time they opened. Clear's throat, you could feel the cold coming in like a wave, one traveler said. It felt like the whole airport was being swallowed by the storm, another added. As hours passed, the airport became a temporary shelter. Airlines handed out water and snacks. Staff pushed carts into crowded terminals. Travelers wrapped themselves in blankets distributed by volunteers. Yet, despite the frustration, OR's personnel worked tirelessly, coordinating ground crews, assisting stranded families, and racing to reopen runways whenever a brief break in the snowfall allowed. But the storm wasn't giving up, and neither could Chicago. By late afternoon, it was clear one snowstorm had managed to disrupt one of America's most essential transportation arteries, proving that even the most advanced airports are vulnerable when nature strikes with precision and force, carrying significant economic repercussions beyond the immediate disruption. While highways froze and airports shut down, the real, profoundly human story of this storm unfolded in the neighborhoods of Chicago and across northern Illinois, where millions of ordinary people faced extraordinary, often isolating challenges. The storm didn't just rewrite the landscape, it brutally rewrote daily life, forcing an immediate, stark adaptation for families, businesses, and essential services. By sunrise, Chicagoans stepped into a world transformed. Main roads, diligently prioritized by city plows, were mostly navigable, albeit slick. But the side streets, the very lifelines of every neighborhood, connecting homes to schools, jobs, and community, were buried, left untouched for critical hours. Cars sat trapped beneath heavy drifts. Sidewalks were coated in thick, treacherous ice, an invisible hazard, and every tentative step outside felt like walking across unseen glass, a constant struggle for balance and safety. In Rogers Park, families bundled up, their breath pluming in the frigid air, to shovel their driveways, only to discover new snow piling up behind them almost as fast as they cleared it, a demoralizing, Sisyphean task. Parents debated with profound gravity whether it was truly safe to attempt walking their children to school, weighing the risks of slipping against the necessity of routine, highlighting the sudden disruption to daily rhythms. Elderly residents peered anxiously out of frosty windows at sidewalks coated in treacherous ice, patiently waiting for compassionate neighbors or dedicated volunteers to help clear a safe, accessible path, a stark illustration of community reliance and the vulnerabilities exposed by such events. Even something as seemingly simple, as fundamentally human, as walking down the street became a formidable challenge, a test of will and balance. People clung desperately to fences, stepped gingerly across frozen patches, slipped, recovered, only to slip again. The cold bit through layers of gloves, and the relentless wind stung exposed skin like 1,000 tiny needles. But in the middle of this harshness, moments of warmth and profound community spirit emerged, a testament to Midwestern resilience. At Millennium Park, the iconic ice rink glittered under falling snow, transformed into a scene of unexpected joy. Families who had canceled other plans turned skating day into a spontaneous celebration, finding solace and cheer amidst the disruption. Children spun across the ice, their laughter echoing between the trees, a joyous counterpoint to the storm's fury. A group of friends from Milwaukee, after spending an hour digging their cars out from under heavy snow, decided to make the 2-hour drive to Tucogodiway, determined to uphold their plans. "It was rough getting out," one of them said, shrugging off the difficulty. "But once we hit dry pavement, it turned into a fun road trip," showcasing a defiant optimism. In neighborhoods from Aurora to Evanston, people stepped up for one another, illustrating the strength of local bonds. Neighbors shoveled sidewalks for elderly residents. Teens helped dig out strangers' cars. Volunteers handed out warm drinks to overworked snowplow operators and emergency crews, providing a small but vital morale boost. It was a powerful reminder that even in a storm defined by danger, frustration, and relentless cold, the Midwest spirit of community never freezes, offering a crucial buffer against widespread despair. But beneath these uplifting moments, daily life remained profoundly strained. Businesses saw fewer customers, suffering immediate revenue losses that would ripple through the local economy. Workers arrived late or not at all, impacting productivity and wages. Pedestrians feared slipping on icy sidewalks, leading to increased risk of injuries and healthcare strain. Drivers dreaded the next morning's commute on still untreated streets, anticipating continued chaos. As daylight faded and temperatures dropped again, Chicagoans knew the challenges weren't over. The storm had tested their patience, their strength, and their resilience, revealing both vulnerabilities and enduring resolve. And winter had only just begun. The long-term economic impact, from delayed shipments to reduced consumer spending, would be calculated in the weeks to come. To truly understand how a single snowstorm managed to shut down highways, paralyze airports, and bury entire communities with such swift, devastating efficiency, we need to look beyond the immediate surface chaos and explore the intricate atmospheric engine powering it. What happened over Illinois wasn't just typical winter weather. It was a complex collision of meteorological forces that aligned with almost surgical precision, resulting in widespread chaos. The first key ingredient was a formidable surge of Arctic air sweeping south from Canada. This air mass, brutally cold and bone-dry, plunged directly into the Great Lakes region. When it crossed over Lake Michigan, which still held anomalous warmth from the prolonged fall season, a trend observed globally due to climate change. The stage was meticulously set for explosive lake effect snow. Warm lake water began to evaporate rapidly into the frigid air above it, a critical transfer of energy and moisture. That moisture didn't travel far before condensing into thick, towering clouds. These clouds then developed into narrow but extremely powerful snow bands. Unlike typical snowfall that blankets wide areas evenly, lake effect bands behave like atmospheric spotlights, targeting specific neighborhoods with intense precipitation while sparing others just a few miles away. That's precisely why places like Sleepy Hollow, Skomberg, and Streamwood were hammered with 6 to 7 inches of snow, almost like a localized blizzard, while nearby towns saw far lighter totals. These bands move with the prevailing wind, sometimes hovering over the same area for hours, producing intense bursts of accumulation at 1 to 2 inches per hour, overwhelming local infrastructure with incredible speed. But lake effect snow wasn't the only factor. A larger synoptic, scale winter storm system was sweeping across the Midwest at the same time, adding widespread snowfall on top of the lake Onset bands. This dangerous combination created overlapping layers of snow, making travel nearly impossible and utterly overwhelming snow removal crews across the region. Then came the relentless wind. Gusts reaching 40 to 45 miles per hour blasted across open stretches of highway. These winds lifted fallen snow back into the air, creating blinding whiteouts that erased visibility in seconds, a major contributor to the nearly 500 crashes reported across Illinois as drivers found themselves swallowed in snow with no warning. Meteorologists called the setup classic but unusually powerful and rapidly intensifying for early winter. What made it truly unusual was not just its intensity, but how quickly the storm reached its peak, and that intensification is increasingly tied to broader patterns scientists have been warning about for years. With Lake Michigan, and indeed many Great Lakes, staying warmer later into the winter season, lake effect snowstorms now have more fuel, more moisture, more energy and more time to grow, often producing more significant snowfall totals than historically observed. Combined with shifting jet stream patterns, which can linger or steer cold fronts more directly into the region, and an atmosphere holding more moisture due to global warming, storms like this are becoming not only stronger but also increasingly unpredictable in their timing and severity. This represents a significant challenge for regional planning and emergency response. For Illinois, and indeed the entire Great Lakes region, the implications are serious and far-reaching. A harsher, more volatile winter season means more sustained strain on snow plows, requiring increased budgets and resources. It means more dangerous commutes, leading to higher accident rates and productivity losses. It implies more frequent airport shutdowns, impacting national and international travel networks. And it necessitates greater energy needs for heating, potentially straining power grids and increasing utility costs for families and businesses. Cities will face bigger, more complex cleanup costs, diverting funds from other critical public services. Families will face more risks each time temperatures plunge, from health hazards to economic burdens. This storm wasn't just a weather event, it was a potent preview of the winters to come, a vivid glimpse into a future where powerful storms arrive faster, hit harder, and push communities to their absolute limits, demanding adaptive infrastructure and updated emergency strategies. As Illinois slowly emerges from the grip of this powerful winter storm, the undeniable signs of its impact stretch across the state. Highways, once littered with abandoned cars, are finally being cleared. O'Hare's runways are beginning to reopen, albeit slowly, as flight schedules gradually normalize. Neighborhoods are digging out from drifts that climbed higher than front porches, a testament to the snow's depth. And families, exhausted but remarkably resilient, are tentatively returning to routines shaped by winter's harsh, unyielding reminder. But this storm leaves behind more than just deep snow and canceled flights. It leaves a crucial if painful lesson. It showed how quickly weather can shift from manageable inconvenience to dangerous crisis. How a single precisely timed burst of Arctic air, interacting with the vast, warm waters of Lake Michigan, can paralyze major highways, freeze one of America's busiest airports, and bring daily life across Chicago to a grinding, unprecedented halt. And perhaps most importantly, it exposed a truth scientists have warned about for years. Midwestern winters are changing, becoming more volatile, more intense, and less predictable. This demands a national conversation on climate resilience and infrastructure investment. Yet, amid the disruption and the cold, Illinois showed its enduring character. Neighbors helped dig out strangers' cars, fostering powerful bonds in adversity. Volunteers brought food and warm drinks to first responders, demonstrating collective appreciation. Families still found moments of joy on ice rinks and snow-covered parks, proving that the human spirit can find light even in the darkest storms. The storm tested this region, pushing it to its brink, and the region pushed back with remarkable fortitude. But the critical question now is not what this storm did, but what comes next. If this is only the beginning of the season, a harbinger of things to come, are we truly prepared for the winter ahead, for the escalating challenges of a changing climate? The time for adaptation is not tomorrow but now.